Welcome to the Get Organized HQ podcast. I'm your host, Tasha Lawrence. Every week, we share practical strategies for less stress and more peace as we dive into all topics life and home organization. I'm so glad you're here for this week's episode. Today's episode of the Get Organized HQ podcast is with professional organizer Allison from Elysian Organizing. And she is someone I came across on TikTok, actually. And little spoiler alert, she is going to be one of our new speakers at this year's annual Get Organized HQ virtual conference. But when she and I were sitting down and chatting about the virtual conference, the Get Organized HQ podcast came up, and I asked if she wanted to come on and share some of the routines and things in her daily life as a professional organizer that are working for her, so that all of you listening in can hear from her and some of her ideas. And she shares some things that she's implemented over the last several of years that have really helped her work with her strengths. And also the thing that she shared that is something that maybe she's still developing or working towards. I 100% resonated with that as well. And I think you're going to too. So go ahead and listen in to this week's episode. Well, Allison, thank you so much for sitting down with us today to talk through your daily routine. Can you just kind of introduce yourself and let everyone know who maybe hasn't met you or come across you online before what it is that you do?
Yeah, so I am a professional organizer. I have my own organizing company. Right now, I'm local to Baltimore. So, Elysian Organizing helps residential and commercial folks looking to get organized. People always call me and ask, like, do you organize, digital organizing? And I'm like, if you can organize it, then yes, I will come and help you organize it.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, I've been in Baltimore. I've been here for a couple years now. I absolutely love this area, this region. I feel like Charm City has really been taking care of me. But I also post on TikTok, so that's where most of my online presence is. I like to share decluttering tips, actionable items that make the overwhelming process of taking care of your home a little bit more tangible and accessible.
Yeah, I love that. Anything that you can take away from a podcast or a TikTok or a YouTube video and actually go and make a real life starting today change, that is so powerful. I mean, there's so much time and space for the inspiration and the idealistic ideas that we can get from scrolling Instagram or TikTok or Pinterest. But whenever you can translate that into something and say, like, here is something you can take away and actually do, that's a winner for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's a lot easier to say, like, okay, go pick up your room or go organize your closet, go declutter your clothes. But what does that mean? It's more than that. It's, the small, actionable items. And then I think too, with like social media and short form content, if you're trying to help people achieve their goals and do things, it should be something that they can do. Like the instruction should be something that they can accomplish in, under 5 minutes. That's always what I try to because like that's our attention span, right? I feel like a lot of people like, you get started in your room, and I know I struggle with ADHD, so it's very easy to like get distracted, but kind of pigeonholing it to specifics, I think especially in organizing, is so important.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that some people listening to this podcast today are going to come away with exactly that, those specifics that you can go and do. So, can you just kind of walk us through your day in the life? What are the things as a professional organizer and just living life, your hobbies, your interests? What are the things that fill your days?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as an organizer, right now I'm a one woman show. So, I do all of the organizing in person, and then I'm handling all of the back end administrative work, space planning, shopping on the back end. So, my day can be split between that. No 2 days look alike. So, usually my day starts with 1 or 2 cups of coffee. I'm definitely a coffee addict. I cannot get out of bed unless I smell fresh coffee in the morning. So that's one of the things I do, or my fiance takes care of at night, is make sure the coffee is ready to go so we can just press the button. So I'll drink a couple cups of coffee, get myself ready. I usually also, you'll notice that I prepare a lot of my thinking for the morning the night before. So what I mean by that is I will journal my entire like routine the night before to kind of reflect on in the morning and come back to like, okay, this is what we're doing today, I feel like my brain is working at like 15% in the morning. So having that from the night before helps me kind of like hone in on, okay, here are the objectives today. Even if it's as simple as like, go to work, kill it at your session, put the laundry away that's in your basket, just like stuff like that. Seeing it on paper and hearing it from myself kind of helps me push forward. So I like to kind of think about like what my day is going to look like and like really zone in there. And then I just go and do it. So my morning and afternoons are like the zones of my day. So I split it in half. So when I'm working with clients, it's either from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And if I don't have a session scheduled that day, then I will try to tackle my like admin work. So usually that's what my day to day will look like. And then in the interim, I'm running to donation centers, I'm running to pick up organizing supplies. My 9 to 5 is all about organizing. I try to keep it limited to that. And then once 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock hits, I do like to put the computer away. I think it's important to be like present in my home and take care of myself and take care of my body. I love yoga. I'll do yoga kind of if I'm working at home. You'll see this if you're watching it on YouTube, but I have a open space in my office that I refuse to fill with furniture because we use it, my fiance as well. We'll do some like yoga while we're working. Um, so yeah, kind of getting the work done and then taking care of my body during the day, but also after work, hitting the gym, doing something like that, and then making dinner. It's kind of just filling my time with, taking care of my business, taking care of my body, taking care of my house. Those are really the things that I like to think about. And then at the end of the day, I come back and I plan for tomorrow. So I'll sit down and I'll journal again about, you know, what does my schedule look like tomorrow? I'll double check my calendar, make sure there's not anything that I'm going to miss. And then I will, write it down. I will even write down something as simple as like my morning routine. Like I make a list of, we can talk about it more later, but I'll make like a checklist of like brush your teeth, wash your face, brush your hair, like those kinds of things. Cause I feel like it's easy to, get lost in the big picture of taking care of everything that lose the pieces to that. If that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah, that you just need that, like, reminder of the next thing to do, and it gives you that boost of knowing, like, "Yes, I'm moving through the things that I intentionally called out as things I wanted to do." I think that is really I think a lot of people resonate with that.
I hope so because sometimes you can feel a little bit crazy, and it's nice to know that like there are coping strategies. At least for me, I see like a lot of ideas, and I take a lot of ideas from online and my friends. So when I hear like a little bit more of that like relatable content, I like to incorporate it into my life, and then it's so nice to be able to share those ideas with others because I feel like taking care of yourself is more than just, or like organizing is more than just like putting things away. It's all an act of self-love, and coming from that perspective has really shifted my understanding and mindset.
Well, so much of what you're saying, there is so much to unpack with that. So I want to go back to you talking about how you're not a morning person, right? You are about 15% capacity first thing in the morning, got to get those cups of coffee in, and how you plan for your day the night before. And what I really hear in that is you just working with your personality. And I think that's really important because it's easy on both ends. I'll tell you, I am actually the complete opposite. Do not make me do anything after 8:30 p.m. Like I we joke that I turn into a pumpkin, like Cinderella's carriage that turns back into a pumpkin at midnight. Well, for me it's at like 8:30. I'm done. But I try to get up at 5 or 5:30 in the morning, and I love that it's quiet and people aren't up yet. And I think whichever end of that you fall on, or maybe you are like, hey, I'm right in the middle. I like to get up at 7:30 and I really like to go home to bed at 10:30. I know I'm guessing at what middle of the middle of the road times are there. But working with your personality in that. And so for you, that means not saying, look at all these people on YouTube who talk about getting up at 4 or 5 a.m. and that's what I need to do to be productive. And for me, it's not saying like, wow, these people and they're staying up till 10 or 11 or 11:30 and they're getting so much done, or look at the social life they have at these times of day. and just saying, nope, like this is what my body and my life and my routine needs right now, and accepting it and then working with that. And so, like, that's what I hear when you talk about this journaling the night before. Is that something you had to kind of develop over time, or like how did that come to be?
Yeah, so I totally agree with everything that you just said. Really, that's a huge philosophy in my business. One of my like biggest values when I'm organizing for people and when I'm organizing for myself is like, I want the space to work for you. I want the routine to work for you instead of you working for it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And like what you were saying, I think self acceptance is easier said than done, first of all, but so important when it comes to taking care of yourself and taking care of your house. It reminds me of a conversation I was having with a friend. She's also a business owner, and she is somebody who will, she has a very high bar for herself, and she will beat herself up because she will see online or like, I don't know where she got this idea in her head that you need to be like grinding every second of the day and like waking up early and working out and blah 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 blah. And so she's so incredibly successful, and she'll talk about her day like, oh, I'm so mad at myself. I just can't get myself to start working before 10, or like I can't get myself out of bed. Like, and it's so like shame based the way that she's approaching the situation. um and it really was almost a light bulb moment for me in that, well, if you aren't able to like work until after 10 and you work for yourself, like why not schedule your work to start after 10 and know yourself to kind of set up that system. So a bit of a tangent, so I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question originally about like the journaling. But to answer your question, I never got journaling. I never understood it. People would rave about it, and I was just like, "You're just like keeping a diary. I don't understand it." And you know, that same friend that I was just talking about, my friend mentioned how she will journal about her tomorrow the night before. And I always thought journaling to be like you write about your day, you write about your feelings, which I think there's an aspect of that that is important. And I'll do that sometimes too, where, you know, I'm recognizing a low point or a high point. A lot of my journaling is very like motivational. So I'm like, I'm doing great, I'm killing it. Or like, you know, I didn't achieve my goal today, but, you know, I'm taking care of myself. Like it's a little bit more of the self talk practice. But before I always understood it to be like, I woke up at 8 o'clock and then I brushed my teeth. And then, you know, so when she said that, I was like, are you kidding? That's amazing. That's the most revolutionary thing I've ever heard in my life. And so I started to do that. It started more as like paragraph form, big picture. Tomorrow, you know, still kind of keeping it as like a diary form. And then I found that to be almost like performative. And then again, I think that's what journaling was, what made journaling hard for me, because I was writing as if somebody was going to go read what I was putting down. And that's not the case. So then I started kind of like scribbling out checklists. My brain works in a checklist. And so I started, you know, one thing that I struggle with, like we talked about before, is the morning routine. I'm operating at 50% in the morning. And so something as simple as like getting out of bed and brushing my teeth or washing my face, like doing the things that, you know, you're supposed to do, that alone was just like so hard for me to overcome as like a young adult and as a teenager, like honing in on that routine. And why does it feel so hard to do that? But then the checklist of the little reward, you know, accomplishing the things like, you know, taking my supplements or, you know, checking my email, those kinds of things I noticed made such a profound difference. So now I obviously, you know, I'm not journaling about like the little things. Once it becomes habit, I don't necessarily need to write it down. But it can be as simple as that. It can be as simple as like, you know, wake up, check. I woke up this morning. That's awesome. I brushed my teeth. Check. That's amazing. I told myself I was going to do it. I did it. You know, I think that was the turning point for me, was just breaking it down and making it simple and reductive and realizing nobody's going to read this. It doesn't matter, you know. It's just here to help me. It's my own resource. So, and I do want to say I was using like brush my teeth as like a example. Obviously, I'm brushing my teeth every morning. But you know, when I hear morning routine, that's kind of like what
Oh,
ends
yeah.
up being written down, you know?
Absolutely. And I think that sometimes just having that checklist, even if it's things that you either are always doing anyway, or even mostly, like I'll admit there are definitely days where it's like, oh, well, look, it's, 1 o'clock in the afternoon and my day got going. And did I brush my teeth this morning? No. So
Right.
just
Yeah.
having that checklist to get you moving and whatever that it might be, getting up, getting dressed in the morning. I think that's a big one, especially for people who maybe work from home or they don't have somewhere that they need to be first thing in the morning. It's so easy. You get up, you start your day, you're doing productive things. Like there's nothing wrong with doing all of that in your pajamas, but you might feel even better and even more motivated just getting dressed, brushing your teeth, washing your face, whatever it is you're wanting to get done in the morning. And I have found sometimes making that really simple checklist, even if it's things I was going to do anyway, can help me to get the momentum going and to see everything that I've done. And then it's easier to transition into some of those harder things. Okay, I got the things I do every day done. Now I can go to my work to do list or my home to do list and I can start tackling a bigger project. So there's no shame in a tool that is serving you. I think you're so right that sometimes we think that we are doing it for someone else to critique it. And maybe part of that is coming from our social media world where everything is shared online. And it's almost like we subconsciously think that somebody must be looking at my journal that I'm writing down. But like it's okay. You can do it for yourself.
Right. Right. And I think too, just like acknowledging the small wins, you know, if I didn't accomplish anything today except for brush my teeth and make my bed, that's still a win for today. That means I took care of my health. I took care of my bedroom. I those two actions alone and just being able to like acknowledge and appreciate yourself for it. Yeah, it does kind of set up that momentum, I think, to, just continue tackling the day.
For sure. So another thing that you had mentioned before our conversation, you talked to me a little bit about transition zones. And so I feel like we should transition to that here. But about talking about momentum through your day, like your day is going to ebb and flow, right? And so how do you use transition zones in your house to help you? Like you said, you have a super busy day, you have clients, you have all the business admin stuff that you have to take care of. And then you also have your home and you want to feel at peace in your home. And so, can you define what these are, these zones that you've set up in your home, and then how they help serve you just through the ebb and flow of your day?
Yes, transition zones are one of my favorite organizing tools ever because it's one of the practices that can lean into your habits and allow you to make a mess in a contained way. So what first I'll say I struggle with ADHD. So I'm somebody who like when I'm done with an item, it's so easy for me to just like throw it on the floor or put it on the table and then forget about it. Okay. And then what that turned into for me before I really discovered organizing and found what worked for me was laundries piled all over the floor. The entryway to my house just has stuff all over it from, my keys, my wallet, my backpack, nowhere to go but the ground, right? The kitchen counter catching my mail, just like piles of mail and paper that it can become extremely overwhelming very, very fast. And so I saw a TikTok video, and this is why I like sharing information on TikTok because there has been like a few ideas like this that have completely changed my life for the better. And so I love to like emulate that and kind of like share the word in a way. But I saw a TikTok video talking about transition zones specifically in the closet. And so that was the first one I ever implemented. So I got a basket and I put it on the floor of my closet. It's different from my hamper in that it catches the clean clothes that I've worn, that instead of like landing on the floor, they go in this basket, right? So let's say I'm in the middle of my day, it's 6 p.m. I just got home from, a double organizing day and I still have dinner to make. The last thing I want to do is fold my shirt if it's still clean or even see if it's still clean, right? So I will throw it in that transition bin, and that's catching all of the laundry that otherwise would just land on my floor. And then it's saving me on my water bill because before it was honestly easier to wash a shirt than it was to fold and hang it. As silly as that sounds, it's like adding steps, but that has like really, really helped me. And I implement that system, the transition bin system in the closet for almost every organizing client I have, because that's a problem that a lot of people face of laundry piling up on the floor. So another transition zone is I have one by my front door. So that's our drop zone for our keys and our wallet. So I never lose my keys anymore. I always know where they are. They're right there by the front door. Simple things like that. And again, these aren't, one size fits all. I think the best way to incorporate a transition zone is to notice and pay attention to the areas of your home that are collecting clutter and that you are constantly having to clean up. So like your bedroom, if your clothes are always on the floor, then that's a behavior that you can incorporate a transition zone to aid with. So instead of changing your behavior, you're setting up your space to work with your behavior. And then the floor gets to stay clean, and your clean clothes, you don't have to put away until you have the mental capacity to do so.
Yes. So how often would you say in like your closet, how often do you find yourself going back to that transition zone you set up and sorting through, figuring out what's clean, all of that?
Yes, I think that's the biggest part of setting up a transition zone, is setting up when you're going to tackle the transition zone, because otherwise it just becomes another doom pile.
It's an overflowing laundry basket now in the closet.
Exactly. So I like to incorporate, well, first, it's if I have the mental capacity, if I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm not doing anything and I see it, then I'll do it. There's really no like set time that I'll tackle the transition bin. And then if I haven't tackled my transition bin in the closet and I'm doing laundry and putting laundry away, then I'll put those clothes away too. And we do laundry at least once a week, so it's easier for me to do it that way
Yeah.
sometimes. But I would never let it go for more than a week. I would definitely, you know, I like habit stacking is something that I really like to incorporate. So if it's something that I already do, like putting laundry away once a week, then I'll put that away.
Yeah. Are there other habits you found helpful for stacking?
Oh my gosh, I love habit stacking. I actually try to seek out as many habit stacks as possible. So the first time habit stacking is not revolutionary. This is something that's been talked about before. It is not something that I came up with. Where it came from, I don't necessarily have the source, but I did not come up with this. But the first one that I incorporated that really helped me kind of start thinking about this more was pumping gas. So every time I pump gas, I will clean out all the garbage in my car. I'm mobile in my business, I'll grab a coffee and I'm not bringing garbage into clients' homes, or I mask and glove at my client's house. And so like garbage can pile up in my car. So I will, every time I pump gas, go and clean out any garbage that's in my car, because there's always the garbage cans at the gas stations, I noticed. Another one that my friend told me she does, because she travels a lot, and I asked her, I was like, oh, what do you like to do on an airplane? Like, you're sitting on an airplane. What are things that you like to do other than like work? And she said that she'll go through the camera roll on her phone and declutter her photos. And my mind was completely blown. Like, that is the smartest thing I've ever heard. Because when are you like held captive, sitting in one place and you don't have cell service, unless you pay for it? So that's something that you can do for free. And then you get to look back at your memories,
Yeah. I
as you're
love
kind
that.
of like, that one, I love that one.
That's so clever. It would not have crossed my mind, but it's such a long time. Like, I'll be honest, you talk about the digital clutter situation. I am just not the person who's going to set up a time once a week to go through my photos. Like, is that a good idea? Yeah. And if it's working for you, that is totally going to keep your photos decluttered. Am I
Yeah.
personally going to do it? No. Like, I'm really, really not. But you're right. I mean, any flight, I mean, my in-laws, we live in Indiana and my in-laws live in California. Do you know how long of a flight that is? I could thoroughly clean out my photos in that amount of time.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And when it comes to like decluttering photos, I would recommend the first time you do it, go to the very top. So start
Mm,
with the oldest photos and then like kind of work from there. And then eventually, hopefully, you'll catch up to you'll
Yeah.
catch up to the real time.
Yes, for sure. Well, so as a professional organizer, would you say that your house is always spotless?
Oh my gosh. I love this question because the answer is absolutely not. I feel like there is, when you're on the internet and you're, trying to give advice on organizing or cleaning, there's this conception or misconception that my house would then be always organized and always clean. And that is definitely not the case. But I do pride myself in having a company ready home. In a sense that if somebody called me and said, I'll be there in 20 minutes, I could get my house together really quickly. And that's because I declutter annually and I've set up, my house in a way that tidying is super, super easy. And then just wiping down the counter or a vacuum, that's something that I can get done. But if you came over surprise in a random surprise, just like, you would see that I live here too. My house isn't always spotless, and there are definitely times where you know I think that I know when to declutter when things are getting out of control. So
Mm-hmm.
there are definitely times where my closet looks absolutely insane. And even I am struggling with like the overwhelm of tackling it. But I recognize that that usually happens when I have too many clothes that are not serving me anymore. So
Yeah.
just going through a decluttering exercise really takes that overwhelm away from me, and then cleaning my closet after that is easy peasy.
Yeah, and I think that whenever you do go through and declutter a space that has been bugging you for a while, just the breathing room that it creates, that in and of itself makes it easier to maintain and in some ways almost more motivating to maintain because if it was going to be stuffed full anyway, like even if it was as good as you could possibly get, it was still going to look like it was overflowing and not what you wanted. It can almost be discouraging from getting it as good as you can. But if you get it to a place where you really are happy with the result, then that can be a really big difference maker.
Oh my gosh, it's absolutely huge. And I always tell people that decluttering and organizing is almost like exercising. You're
Mhm.
not going to be, a bodybuilder, and like it's not going to be insane and perfect, the first month that you go to the gym, but you get better over time and it becomes easier over time. And I would say, when I first started, incorporating organizing philosophy and practice into my life, like being more intentional about organizing, it was definitely not super intuitive. There were times that it became overwhelming. But the more I practiced at it, and now I'm kind of in a good routine of I'll declutter every year, and I've set myself up for success from the years of work that I've done in the past. So if you declutter for the first time and you organize for the first time in your closet and it's still not at that level of like perfection and it still doesn't feel fully intuitive to maintain, it's not a failure on your part. It's just the start. It's the beginning, and you have accomplished something really, really huge because the first declutter is always the hardest declutter. Your
Yes.
muscles are going to be sore the next day, right?
Yes, 100%. I've often said decluttering is iterative. It's something you're going to come back to over and over. And you're so right. That very first time going through can be a lot more overwhelming for sure.
Absolutely. And that's why it's always good to have a coach. It's always good to have somebody who, maybe not even fully a professional organizer, but somebody who, you know, can help you identify the items that are serving you and just be like an extra set of hands and somebody to help motivate you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Whether that be a professional organizer or an online support group that you found, or a neighbor or a friend or something like that, having just an outside perspective can really be helpful for sure. So, one thing that we also try to talk about here on this podcast is that not everyone is killing it at everything all the time, right? So, we're talking about those quick wins and the tangible things that we can take and do. And I think it can sometimes lead to the idea that, like, oh, well, like your home is organized, your home is ready for company in 20 minutes. And maybe somebody listening is like, oh, mine isn't, like that's not where I'm at yet. But I think it's important to know that everyone has the things that they're really good at, and everyone has the things that they're still trying to find solutions for themselves. I have those things, you have those things, everyone listening has those things. So, can you share just what are some of the things that you have found that you're still trying to figure out your system for?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll lead by saying that I'm very blessed to have a partner, right? I think like cohabitating or sharing a home with somebody and sharing responsibilities is everything. Doing it by myself was a very different experience than what it is now. So, um, that kind of just going back to like getting the house like together in 20 minutes, it's
Oh,
because
sure.
there's two
Yeah.
of us and we have no, we don't have kids. Like that kind of
Yeah.
like makes it easier for us. But the things that I struggle with, well, one thing that we were talking about before is the if I have too much time, then I don't get the things done that I need to get done. Right? Like if you give me
100%. Yes.
a whole day to work on something and then tell me that it's due at 5 p.m., I'm starting at 4:30 probably.
Yes. I totally understand that.
I think it comes from like ADHD. I have a little bit of like decision paralysis. And so, like, the inability to start and the procrastination, that is just something that is just part of me, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely have found that I have a cleaner home and I get more of the like extraneous things done when I am busier. Like I am probably exercising better, meal planning better, keeping my home cleaner, keeping up with laundry better when my schedule is packed and you're like, how are you even finding time to get that in? Then if you say, oh, well, you don't have very much on the calendar this week. I mean, is the laundry gonna get done? I'm not really sure, that kind of thing. I don't know what it is, but I very much relate to that.
I think a lot of people do, which is again why I think it's talking about things that I don't excel at. It's almost like, and not in a way that I don't see like fault in like what I do, but I approach life in a very like, self-accepting, give yourself grace perspective. And so when there are things that I'm struggling with, I don't necessarily see that as a failure. I almost see that as just like a win in and of itself, because I know that this isn't something that I'm good at or something that I struggle to maintain. And then I can work to set up a system that helps me manage that, and perfection only exists, in the movies, right? And I think Pinterest and Instagram and social media, while it's amazing to be able to like get inspiration and see and see good ideas or hear about other people's experience, a lot of times it is a little bit of a facade, or it's an empty room. Like Pinterest organizing is a bunch of empty rooms. Okay. And as much as minimalism, I really am not a huge fan of like minimalism in the sense that I don't really think it's accessible in the way that people want it to be. I think having stuff is a beautiful thing, and having messiness and struggle is so human, and it is beautiful. So being able to like observe it, appreciate it, give yourself the grace that you need. That's just the human experience that we all get to be a part of together.
I think it's so true that if we can just recognize areas where maybe we have potential for growth or change and not beating ourselves up for that and feeling discouraged and getting paralyzed in that, but instead seeing it as an opportunity to make something better, to try new things, to figure out how we can serve our lives and our homes and the people around us and all of that more effectively and with less stress and more peace and all of those things, it's not going to be a light switch solution, but just recognizing that there's an opportunity here, viewing it as an opportunity, I guess, is what I'm saying, instead of viewing it as something to just be super discouraged about. So, I have one more question for you that I like to ask every guest that we have on this podcast. And that is, what is one thing that's bringing you less stress and more peace right now?
Honestly, I'd say journaling and yoga, the really mindful practices that help me come back to the earth. They ground me a little bit. I think, especially because I'm in a service based job, my head can be in the clouds a lot, or like my head is with my projects, it's with my clients, because my focus is them and the success of the project and helping them succeed. But sometimes it gets away from me, that, or like, I guess sometimes it's good to just like come back to myself, and realize that, okay, my body needs the TLC as well. Like I should be kind of giving myself the same juice, right? Otherwise, there won't be anything left for anybody else. And then I guess the second thing that gives me less stress, more peace is my amazing fiance. Um, Having a partner to share in the responsibility of life has, um, just made my life so much easier. And I think when we moved in together, we had a very clear like division of labor talk. Um, and so being able to like communicate, where I'm at in terms of like what I can handle, and then, taking up space when he needs the little bit of help, those are things that I think are just immeasurable.
And just having those important conversations and figuring out what's working for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then too, I'm very blessed, just like being a little bit, earlier in my life that, right now my baby is my business and my baby is my health and my house. And so that I feel like I'm just like really soaking this time in and like really trying to appreciate and be present in my life, how it looks right now, because I know that there are a lot of factors that can affect your life and a lot of things that really take up space, and I'm right now, I feel very blessed. And I wake up every single morning appreciating, the things that I have and the people that are around me. Um, and the appreciating the beauty of life and kind of seeking out the beauty of life, that has made me happier because, it's very easy to focus on like
Yes.
things that aren't working, right? Or things that
Yes.
might be a little bit tough. But
Yes.
that alone, just like being mindful, being appreciative, being grateful, all of those things, I think, help me stay, less stressed, I
Yeah,
guess.
100%. So, you mentioned that you're based in Baltimore, but you also share on TikTok. So, where is it people can go to hear more from you, hear more inspiration, all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, my main online presence is on TikTok. So my app is Wonderland Alice. I'll probably just stick with doing TikTok for now. I know that YouTube and Instagram and sharing more in my future, or sharing more online, is in my future, but my main focus right now is, organizing in Baltimore, organizing with my clients, and then I also do virtual organizing as well. So, if you want some organizing help, you can check out my website and set up a free consultation with me. Happy to chat about your organizing needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll have links to that in the show notes. Thank you so much for taking the time just to chat with us today.
Oh my gosh, thank you. It was so nice to, have this conversation and talk about organizing for a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Get Organized HQ podcast. I hope you got some tangible action steps that you can take away and start applying today. Maybe making one of those lists of what you're going to do tomorrow, tonight, before you go to bed. Either way, be sure to look up Allison on TikTok so that you can learn more from her. And we'll see you right back here for next week's episode.